Good morning. My name is Megan Barrio. I started attending Old Donation with my family in 2016, mainly because of all the youth programs offered here. It was a big change after being a part of St. Stephen's elderly congregation for years. Now you can regularly find me in the gathering. I served as the youth vestry representative for 2018, and have also been involved with many other projects around church. As I was studying the readings for today, I started to think about how they relate to my life. 7 years ago, Ben, my youngest brother, was admitted to CHKD for a common stomach bug. The rest of us had already been sick and recovered quickly, but Ben wasn't getting better. When I saw him in the hospital with barely enough energy to show me the oxygen monitor on his finger, I knew that my calling was to help sick people. I wanted to be just like those nurses and doctors who cared for Ben when we had little hope that he would regain his health. Thankfully, my brother did recuperate, but that experience changed my life. Today, my goal is to become a nurse. As I got older, I started to question whether nursing really was my calling. I worried that I wouldn't be good enough, or that I'd fail, or that maybe I'm not the right person for that job after all. Isaiah's response to God's call of "Here I am" seemed so natural when I was young and in the middle of my brother's crisis. But as time passed, I started to have doubts. Last Sunday, Jeremiah's response to God was, "But I'm only a boy." And today Isaiah says, "But I have unclean lips," which I take to mean I'm not good enough. Both know they need more of something to be successful at God's call. I worried the same about my call. But since I started attending Old Donation, I've grown in my faith and understanding of God's plan for me. By attending Sunday school and pilgrimage, and just spending time with friends with whom I share the same faith, I've become closer to God. I've witnessed those around me following God's call without hesitation. From the Wades with all the work they do feeding people in Norfolk, and my mom with the children's ministry, to the ushers at every one of our services, and countless others in our congregation. On vestry, I heard about lots of people in this parish doing amazing things, using their talents to make this a more God-like world. They serve God faithfully by doing their best wherever they are. One example is my dad, who's been running the food services for thousands of sailors on USS George H.W. Bush, and before that was stationed at Camp David. While some might not recognize this as God's work at first glance, he is fulfilling his calling by making a positive impact on the lives of those serving around him. At Old Donation, I have had the opportunity to see many others like him who might not have thought at age 17 or 18 that they could do what they are now accomplishing. These people inspire me to follow God's call without doubt or worry. I've been close up enough to see that it takes hard work sometimes, but I also see people who hear a call to serve God. When they say yes and step forward, they keep a smile on their face, and then other people rally to help. What seems difficult or impossible to imagine gets done, and the people who step up to do it seem happier and more blessed than before they said yes to God. Paul says in today's Corinthians reading, "For I am the least of the apostles, unfit to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace toward me has not been in vain. On the contrary, I worked harder than any of them. Though it was not I, but the grace of God that is with me. Whether then it was I or they, so we proclaim, and so you have come to believe." And while I don't have my whole life and career figured out yet, I've learned that I don't have to be perfect to follow God. Paul persecuted the church, and yet he went on to become an apostle. He chose to follow God wholeheartedly, and God accepted Paul into his family. God knew what Paul would go on to do. God has a plan for each of us, just like he did for Paul. We don't need to be afraid to follow God. Instead, let's answer God's call as Isaiah did. "Here I am, send me."